Well, Deborah, thanks for joining me today. It's fun. We were just talking, and I was already going to kind of go there with you, but just even hearing you speak about all the things that you are doing, it was obvious when I was doing my homework on you. But the thing, and I mentioned it to you earlier, that I really like when I was just doing my homework on your history and what you guys are offering now as an organization professionally, you are someone who has actually done it, is doing it, and then is an expert at providing that type of opportunity for others. So for those that are not familiar, whatever, can you give us kind of the Cliff Notes version of your journey to this point?
Oh, yeah, I'll start with the very beginning.
Give it a shot.
Well, there's a definite turning point. I was a first-year law student, and it wasn't what I thought it was. I planned on being a lawyer since I was 10 years old. And I'm in first-year law, and anybody who's gone through it knows that it's extremely stressful. My brother, who's 10 months older than me, was an amateur comedian.
Oh,
So
wow.
I would go like every night to the comedy club to unwind. And finally, the guy who owned the club at the time, he said, you're here and you don't drink a whole lot. I'm going to put you to work. And he had me start interviewing the comics who were coming through town. And I interviewed people who are very beginning of their careers, like Dave Coulier, Paul Reiser.
Oh,
You can
wow.
see now my generation.
You,
And I started writing for a free magazine. And I said, gosh, this is fun. And then I found a family history secret that I guess I could reveal because I'm working on a book. Do you want to hear it?
I do. Yeah, you
Okay.
can't just
I
throw
can't
that
just
out
like
there.
throw that out there. So yeah, what was happening is I was in my first year. I'd finished my first year of law school at this point, and my grandmother, unfortunately, on my father's side, was in ill health, and my mother said, "You better call her. This could be the last time you speak to her."
Yeah.
And I was saying to her, "Grandma, I'm in law school. Life is good." And she gets really quiet and she says, well, at least some good will come of this. I'm like, what? And I found out that there was a family secret that my father had never told me, that my grandfather was a fairly notorious gangster during Prohibition. and,
That's awesome.
I know, that's how I thought. And of course, my father is like, okay, now the beans have been spilled, and still reluctant to talk about it. But I was fascinated, and
Oh,
I immediately, you don't quit law school if you survive first year,
yeah,
okay,
right.
or it's you're sentenced to your demise from your
Yeah.
parents. At least I would have been. So what I did is I went to the journalism school and I created a dual degree. And
Oh,
my
wow.
whole intention was to ultimately write like true crime, Truman Capote, creative.
Yeah.
I majored in new journalism, it was called at the time, creative nonfiction. Um, and of course, didn't have a chance to write that particular, well, my family history is still in the works.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to all wait for that one. But I
That's
did have
amazing. That's
an,
gonna,
yeah, I've been researching it for a lot of years.
it would be, you can go ahead. Do you have,
Oh, no, I was going to show you
okay.
that I didn't get a chance to write anything like that until a few years ago. Do you see what this is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah, this was
Wow.
my, because every time I would try, an agent, before Jeff was my agent, I had another agent. Some people know a lot about him. His name was Al Zuckerman, major
Yeah.
agent. And I was writing a true crime, and then he said, come back in 5 years.
Yeah.
And then, and then I met Jeff, and he basically said almost the same thing. He said, it's, too local. So I started working with him. And it wasn't until 2016 that opportunity for the Manson book to write the memoir of the youngest member of the Manson family came about.
How much research goes into writing a book like that? Like, how much time do you spend like researching and?
Well, excuse me, allergies.
Yeah, you're fine.
It depends. For for the Manson book, I had actually been researching for most of my life
Yeah,
because I was a trial lawyer for a short period of time after law school. So fascinated with how the legal system works and how trials work because it's proving something. It's
sure.
unpacking a puzzle. And I was fascinated with cults.
Hmm.
I had read Helter Skelter as a young person, scared the life out of me. And then I also was very interested just in the topic. And um, at around the time this opportunity came up for me, a really good journalist, Jeff Gwynne, wrote a book about Manson and his childhood.
Yeah.
And I said, universe, if I ever want to write a Manson book, I'll have to look up this guy's research. It's really well done. And then about a week later, I got an email for the agency from Dianne Lake, formerly known as Snake, who
Oh,
had never told her story. And
wow.
at first I was thinking, oh, this is great for the agency. And then I was like, dummy, this is what you've been waiting for. This is like, so as far as research, with a book like this, hundreds of books were written on the subject.
Sure.
It was a major historic event that in some ways changed society at that time in the 1969, 1970. And Dianne had one perspective, her story. So this is a combination true crime, history, and memoir.
Hmm.
So you asked about the kind of research. I must have read about 30 books
Oh, wow. Yeah.
because I like to become very immersed. So I made myself an expert on anything that had been written, the times. I had to guide the narrative for accuracy.
Yeah.
And I had an excellent editor. And then Dianne and I spent a tremendous amount of time talking, um, researching. But when you're working with someone, and this is good for anybody who's a ghostwriter, when you're working with someone taking their story, you need to be extremely sensitive because to you, it's a cool story.
Hmm.
To them, it's trauma.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's really several aspects of research that come together.
Hmm.
Hope that answered your question.
No, it's great. And it's just funny because I think of it would be fascinating to do that anyway, to go through that process. But now doing it on a story about your own family has got to be just incredibly, I mean, it's just got to be amazing, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
oh, it's totally wonderful. And my uncle is the only one remaining from my father's generation, and it was
sure.
his father. And he was among 11 brothers and sisters, my
Wow.
grandfather, who all emigrated. Originally, they emigrated from a shtetl in somewhere in Russia and
Wow.
wound up in Vermont. And this one area of Vermont was called Little Jerusalem because that's where all the Jewish immigrants came. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
And he was, of course, the black sheep because prohibition created an economic opportunity,
Oh, yeah.
really.
Oh, yeah.
And and our culture does we don't tend to be drinkers,
Sure.
although who knows today everybody does everything. At least back then it was only ritual, so it was just an economic thing. But my uncle and I are having a wonderful time. I learned the process of taking someone back through memory
Yeah.
by working with Dianne. And like some of the things that he doesn't realize he remembers um, are triggered by the techniques I use.
Oh, very cool.
And then I also didn't realize I thank God for digitizing.
Yeah.
I was able to find articles from the little newspapers all about my dad who's passed
So
away.
cool. Wow. That's got to be
He,
amazing.
he won awards in school. I found and received, it's over on my bookshelf. I actually have my father's yearbook, not his
Oh,
exact
wow.
one,
That's
but from his
amazing.
school graduating class.
Oh,
I have
wow.
that. I was able to find the physical yearbook.
Yeah.
So all of that research, I wish everybody, even if they don't know how to write and they never want to publish, everybody should go through this kind of process.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gotta be a fascinating journey. I mean, to go through that and know that you're attached to it is what an experience.
I learned
Yeah.
things about my father, and also, um, I don't want to give away too much of the story, but I learned things about why my father's own trauma of having, you know,
Yeah.
because they didn't realize what was going on as kids
Sure.
until
Gosh, it's
later.
amazing. So
Isn't this a
incredible.
great story? Aren't you going
Well,
to want
that'll
to
be
read it?
fun. Yeah, I actually can't wait now. I'm sold. Yeah, I'm sold. Yeah, it's gonna be cool. That's really amazing. I mean, I just putting myself in your shoes, how fascinating. I just think of like my dad, and you know, how little I know about anything beyond really even my father. I don't very, but to be able to dig into the past and trying to take that journey with them has got to be a really cool.
And that's why, one of the things you're talking about, all the different businesses I have, we were talking earlier before we started, taping, but one of the things I've gotten into doing is helping people with family histories, because no matter what, even if we think we don't want to know, there's a stage in life where looking back and wanting to know where you come from becomes very significant.
Yeah, yeah, I
And
agree.
keeping that legacy alive for children and future generations, photographs, and now of course we can scan and preserve, and even upgrade the quality. It's just wonderful.
Yeah. Now, when you have so much going on. Like, I mean, I knew a little bit just doing my homework, but as like we were talking before, it's like you have a lot of things going on. I guess at what point did you transition, or was it always uh, in the cards to be in the position of actually, fostering new authors the way that you guys are? And a couple of things I mentioned your websites when you and I were talking, very well done. I mean, they're great. I'll link to all of
Thank
those for anybody
you.
here
Thank
down
you.
below. But a couple of things that I really liked was you had on the main site like steps to the publishing, and you list all the steps out. I think it's really interesting. But for you to build that business, was that something you always knew? Like, okay, I'm going to help others. Kind of.
No,
Yeah.
no.
How does that happen? How do you go
The
from?
universe does very strange things. That's all I'll say. First of all, I thought I was going to be, a lawyer. And then, oh, there's even some steps in between. I used to run a holistic center. But that's a whole different side of what I do. But I think sometimes I'm looking for, this is not a magic bookshelf. I know it looks like it. But I'm looking for, my husband's really been an advocate for writer education for many, many years.
Yeah.
And he started this I didn't realize he had started the agency right around the time that we met. Now, we didn't get married until 1996. I
Yeah.
just worked with him. He was my agent, and he also involved me remotely, because I was not living in New York. He involved me remotely in the business. I learned how to
Sure.
write book proposals. He had me, um, curating and looking at query letters, and was teaching me, because I was writing some really bad book proposals. And eventually, we created this format of,
Yeah.
and structure, and a lot of it came from my training as a lawyer, because you wrote briefs and you had to be
Yeah.
persuasive. And so we wrote these books well, the writer's guide, or Jeff Herman's guide. I have a couple of essays in there, but it's
Yeah.
really his baby.
Does
And
that say the
just,
28th edition on that book?
yes, 28.
Wow. What?
And at least 500,000 people have purchased this over the years, and some very famous authors got their start.
It's amazing.
And and so, I this I guess destiny really happened when Jeff and I were brought together,
Yeah.
because he's a maverick. I mean, he couldn't stand that when he started as a literary agent, he couldn't get through the gatekeepers
Yeah.
himself. And so what he did, because this is his personality, and it's very cool, is he figured out how to open it up and how to give writers the opportunity to go right to the right editors.
Yeah.
But in the course of doing that, writers needed to become educated.
Yeah.
So as a team, we've worked in writer education, but things shifted. Jeff's always been a traditional literary agent. He has sold over 1,000 books,
Wow.
13 of which were mine,
Yeah.
things I never thought I'd be writing about, but did. Just because it was, when you want to be a writer, you will, you're going to take opportunities
Yeah.
and you're going
Yeah.
to learn your trade. So, I mean, my first book was a book that was handed in by the author and turned down. And that's not good, because then either everybody has to return the advance,
Yeah.
everybody's unhappy. So I was handed the um, the manuscript to fix. I didn't know if I
Yeah.
could or not, but you say yes, thank
Yeah.
you. And I took a long time. It was a medical trivia book, humor trivia book,
Wow.
and I didn't know if I could or I couldn't, but I did it.
It's
And
incredible.
and it was accepted. I saved the day and I earned probably about 5 cents an hour by the time it was done. But I learned,
Yeah.
and I learned by doing. And then, got easier. I had more confidence, and I learned more about what it takes to write a book.
Yeah.
And other opportunities came up. I wrote a book about the complete idiot's guide to motherhood, which was perfect timing because my kids were driving me crazy. And so I wrote a lot of funny stories that to this day they share with people, about them. And just for people who want to be writers as a
Yeah.
career, the more you do, the better you become. And eventually, where things shifted is publishing changed, and things became conglomerates,
Yeah.
opportunities were becoming less. And at the same time, social media was in its burgeoning stage, and on the internet was all kinds of snake oil.
Yeah.
I'll sell you 1 million likes and you'll be famous. So what I did is I went to school and I studied digital marketing strategy, social media strategy, and entrepreneurship, because we had started a social network,
Yeah.
which we're redoing the website because now
Sure.
I'm really good at websites and I have a
Yeah.
great team. But it's called Writers Networking, but it started out as Writers, Agents, and Editors Network.
So have you always leaned on like mentors, or like you said, you went back to school to learn social media? Is that it's just it's incredible to me, and it's inspiring actually. I mean, to see how much stuff that you're in and how you continue to, evolve with everything that you're doing. I think people struggle with that, and so the question is like, how do you, I mean, do you just find something that you want to learn and then go find someone to teach you, or
I'm
do you
going to
just,
give you the secret.
yeah,
I am a huge nerd. I really am. My house is full of books. I am a bookworm. I was the kind of kid who loved school, and I but I also have an intuition of following the signs and
yeah,
trying to stay ahead of the curve. And what I noticed when I studied those intensives, it was because I couldn't find the answers on the internet, and I didn't know who to trust. So
yeah,
I chose to find an academic opportunity where I felt these people at least knew what they were talking about.
hmm
And then
hmm
got the education. I think that it's important. Not everything is for everybody. I'm a little bit on hyperdrive, okay? But I really think that it's important for people to find out what they don't know and be open to knowing what they need to know.
Sure.
And
Sure.
we've made it easy by just bringing it all together. And I'm grateful for the people I have on my team, because they're smarter than me in a lot of areas.
So at what stage do you get people coming to you? Are you taking people all the way from the inception of an idea all the way through, or is it like I'm coming to
Yeah.
you? Oh, really? And I guess you already have a knack for it, obviously, with what you've done in your history. I think it's an interesting way to position yourself. And I also think it's accurate, after doing my homework of, you stated in a way, and I'm going to get this wrong, but it's on your website, like of knowing what sells and how to make it sell. Like when it comes to publishing, is there things that I guess what sells? How do you get yourself into a pocket of finding a niche or a subject where you look at it and you go, this is gonna be a worthwhile pursuit?
I think Jeff has a better instinct about the traditional market than I do,
Mm-hmm.
because he just looks at something and says, that's a Jeff Herman book, I can sell it.
Yeah.
And he knows who will buy it, and he knows how to position it and package it. Where I come from now is I look at material and then I see the book in it. And we approach it now in it's more scientific than it used to be. Before, it used to just be a gut.
Yeah.
And not everybody can be traditionally published now, which is why I also have an indie publishing company.
Yeah.
But I think there needs to be the opportunity for people who want to write to learn how to do it, and to understand that there's a learning curve. So there's a lot of ease of access now. You could just upload anything. But if you want to make it, if you want to have pride in what you're doing, and you want to make sure that it reaches the right readers and that it becomes something, there's a learning curve. And so we're positioned to help people fulfill their dreams, because if you're passionate about a subject and you want to, and you have something to say, you're going to keep doing it. And then rather than banging your head against a wall, you need professionals to tell you how to massage it and how to build it and grow it. But what we do now, which is very scientific, is we start off with search engine optimization, keyword research, very geared for authors. It's not your mother's SEO. I don't know. Your mother didn't have SEO, but we actually look at it as author advocates. And so while I'm maybe, or my editors are assessing a book to see where is the book and how we can position it and fix it and market it and publish it, our SEO person or persons is actually pinpointing what people are searching for and who the audience is.
Oh,
and
wow.
and it's a really it's a skill, and it's like magic, because that's utilizing technology. So that, because what I used to find when I was evaluating books was, this person's got a really good idea, they have no clue who their reader is.
Right.
And so there's all this extraneous information, or if they want a publisher to buy the book, they make these spurious kinds of announcements like, it's going to be a bestseller, everybody should read this book. And it's like, yeah, maybe to you, but I've read 1,000 of these.
Yeah.
And I can break them into categories of the kinds of books people write.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, another person, and please, I don't want to offend anybody, but oh my gosh, another person is reinterpreting some kind of major, I can't turn off my phone, interpreting some kind of major biblical text.
Yeah. That's so funny.
And then, or somebody else is a retired person, and they're saying, this is how I know how to be happy, and I'm going to tell you how to be happy.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean that retired people are not people who have great things to offer, but they're only seeing their one project.
Sure.
And they don't realize that we have already seen 50 of these in a week.
Yeah.
So what we need to see are what are the things, what are the nuggets that what's the unique selling proposition that each author brings to the table, because then we can brand them and we can build their following. Everybody's got a story, but they need to know what about it is of benefit to other people, because that's what writing for an audience is.
It's fascinating the way that you approach it. And maybe you already think of it this way, but I mean, I think you could take that same concept for authors, like you're talking about in the books, and apply it to almost any business, right? Where
I
it's just
agree.
like, it's
And
just
that's where
another,
that is how we did this. We
yeah,
realized this is like any business. And you've got to think of yourself as you're not just an artist.
yeah.
You can be an artist in a cave, but you got to think about, if you want people to read your work, there's got to be something in it for them.
Wow, that's
Whether
amazing.
whether it's entertainment, whether it's information, whether it's inspiration, whether it's to see themselves in your story.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so and when I'm coaching authors now with memoir, because that seems to be my forte, um I'm always telling them, you're not you, you are your persona,
Mm-hmm.
you are
That's
a
interesting.
character,
What do you mean by that?
you're a character in your own story. And even though you're writing from your point of view, it's got to be more than that. You've got to have reflection back on, there's got to be meaning, there's got to be a theme, there's got to be what we call a through line,
Hmm.
in order for it to be a compelling, well-written memoir. It can't just be, and nobody should have an autobiography unless they are Lincoln, okay, or somebody really super famous. And even then, it's a memoir is a whole different thing. It's
Yeah.
a snapshot in time for a purpose.
Yeah. So cool. What have you seen? Like you made a career of this, of course, between you and your husband. It's like, how has publishing changed? Like with the emergence of digital and all of that jazz. Is there anything that you're, I guess, what excites you about when you look forward into what's happening in your world? Like what is the most exciting thing about what you see down the road?
The reason I've positioned myself the way I have with author branding and indie publishing and guiding authors to be better
Mm-hmm.
is because of the opportunities that I see unfolding with technology. And in during the time that small publishers were being eaten up by the conglomerates, and people need to understand, these conglomerates are not necessarily US companies, not that there's a problem with that. They are huge international media concerns, and publishing is this much.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as personal as it used to be. And there isn't as much leeway for these editors to choose projects they just love. And it's a shame. And so the second thing that happened is platform became far more important. You needed to come to a publisher already with a following, almost as if they don't, you don't need them,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you already need to, they're not going to make you famous. That's a lot of what, a misconception that I see with a lot of the submissions that we would get is that, oh, when the book comes out, then I'll do this and this and this. That's backwards. And the burgeoning idea of platform really created a barrier for so many possible good books,
Sure.
because it was too high a threshold. The Manson book, we needed to have, they needed to know they were going to sell 20,000 copies in the first couple of weeks.
Wow.
That's a big threshold.
That is a huge threshold.
Now, not to brag, but now I know what it's like to be a front list, top list, best selling, because we got the book it was the timing, it was the story, it was everything. Because the day I handed in the, you know, the proposal, I sold this on proposal.
Wow.
The day I handed in the proposal was the day Manson first went into the hospital.
Oh, wow.
Now it created urgency.
Yeah.
That's what agents love, and any salesperson, which is what it is. It's sales. So then the next thing that happened is Dianne, the subject of the book, happened to be in town. We got a bunch of appointments. People, so she met people in person. We got a great offer from the publisher of our choice. And then it was great, except then I was given a 90-day deadline to write an entire book that I had not started because we changed it from the original proposal.
Holy cow.
Yeah, that's
90
what I'm
days.
saying. I'm a nerd.
Wow.
So I told my children, I said, unless you're bleeding or in jail, I'm off the grid. And again, it's one of those things where you're too afraid not to do it
Yeah.
because it's like, this is the opportunity I've been waiting for forever. And Dianne was a dream to work with. The book was finished. We then had several months to, revise it and refine it. The book came out October 24th. Charles Manson left the planet on November 20th.
Wow. Isn't that something?
So it all boom, boom, boom. But that's lightning in a bottle.
For sure. Yeah.
And it's very hard to reach that threshold. And that's the pressure that the editors are under, which is why, the old days you could get a really good advance for what was called mid-list books that were not these massive, yes, we've got this big audience types of books. So your question was future.
Yeah.
We now can level the playing field. And that's why I have an author branding company. Because in the past, you had to have the kind of platform that meant you were on broadcast media, you were doing your own talk show, you were speaking all around the world. Well, then I'm really sorry. It's a horrible thing that we had a pandemic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the world was changing anyway. And we are now a global economy,
Yep.
especially for media. So using digital marketing strategy and content strategy, we are leveling the playing field because people buy online and they find if you have a great website, but not a website that's invisible, because you can have a beautiful website you put together with one of these quickie things.
Yeah.
Google doesn't see that. The only way Google knows you're there and readers know you're there is through digital marketing. And we know how to do that.
Yeah, that's so cool. So
It's very cool. It's
it's
technology.
really exciting, and I've talked to other, publishers and authors. I do think that's one of the cool things that has emerged is, the access, the ability to actually get your story out there. And I guess, that's true for any type of media now, right? I mean, just to do this even or shoot a video would have cost, when I started in business over 20 years ago, it would have been thousands of dollars to do something like just even like this that we're doing now.
I am so thrilled with what we have at our fingertips,
Yeah.
used correctly
There you go.
to bring the world to a better place. And I'm dedicated to that. When I choose projects, it's something that betters the world. I have turned down projects that I felt were going to make things worse.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't judge people, but there's a lot of misuse of technology. And I'm a lawyer. I studied the First Amendment. Okay. And people are saying that everything is free speech.
Yeah.
Then they don't understand the First Amendment. For a
Yeah.
civilized society, I don't mean to go off on a
Oh,
pontificate.
no, it's okay. Yeah.
But in a civilized society, there are reasons why certain types of speech are not protected
Yeah.
because of the result.
Sure.
And why we have slander and libel laws. So, I think that just like Mr. Rogers used to say, when TV was coming out and people were thinking it was going to ruin the world, used correctly,
Yeah.
it's the best resource we can possibly have to have a free exchange of ideas. And the other advantage for why we're now also doing the branding is people need to rise above the noise.
Yeah.
And what was happening is readers had too much to choose from. So we're trying to make it easy for readers to discover good books and for writers to not be invisible
Yeah.
and to be more professional.
What a unique skill set that you guys bring to the table. I mean, I just think that coming at it from the angle that you guys do, it's just a really unique opportunity for somebody. I mean, you guys, well, it's funny because you're practicing what you preach. You know, like you have your stick that rises you guys above for sure, and it's, man, it's refreshing. It's exciting. It's really exciting. I'm happy for you. One more question for you. Like when you think of all you've done and what you're doing, and this is kind of a heavy question, but do you ever think of legacy? Like what are you trying to,
You mean the
you know,
fact that I have a big gray streak in my hair and I'm
hey,
no
look,
longer my
I
20s?
used to have more of this too. It happens to everybody. That's called adventures in
Absolutely.
living.
Absolutely. I think about it all the time. I mean, all three of my children are involved in my businesses. You know, my oldest daughter is an artist and an illustrator. My son is one of my senior editors, and he's a wonderful writer. And they both write fantasy, and you know, so direct legacy, yes.
Yeah.
Global legacy is we are constantly trying to help people to have confidence, professionalism, to be willing to take a chance. You know, we're a strengths-based company. So, you know, we succeed if our authors succeed.
Yeah.
And we want them to, you know, like, I mean, I always have to remind myself when I'm editing something to remember to tell them what's good about it, you know,
Yeah.
because we're all very sensitive and we all, you know, we're all putting ourselves out there. But I want people not to change tense in their paragraphs.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I love it.
That was a nerd thing I wanted to say.
Like perfect. This is perfect.
Yeah, no, I just want people to be happy and fulfilled and to love books and to keep writing and to keep reading and you know, a lot of what we're seeing, and I'm sure you'll end with this, but it's content and it's just the ways of distributing it. That's all it is. Whether it's ebook, whether it's physical book, whether it's video, audio, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
It's all about just sharing ideas and being heard.
I love it. Well, I'm so happy that you know, you took the time out with me. This is fun. I could talk to you I can't wait for your book to come out, by the way. It's going to be
awesome. My family history. I better get to working on that.
It's going to be great. But I mean, kudos to you. I love what you guys do. And I'm going to link anyone watching this. There'll be links down here to all of your various assets, which are all incredible. I mean, not only well done from a design standpoint, but just so much value. And you know, talking to you, you get a sense for why that is. And so I'm just so happy for you and your journey. Congratulations on all your success.
Oh,
what you guys are doing. It'll be really fun to watch you guys continue to grow. I love it.
Oh, thank you. And I just want to thank my team. You know, it's never one person. It may be one person with, I mean, I do have to say I have a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
But I have great people who help me implement. And that's what's great about it. So, yeah. And well, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'll definitely be in touch and I'll let you know when this goes live, but I appreciate your time.
Thanks.